All right. Hello, everyone. This was an unplanned, very impromptu little live stream. I'm not sure how long it'll go, but John's read the book Lilith and has had some interesting insights and wanted to talk to me about them. And we got started in the conversation, and I thought, oh, this would really be worth talking about so others could enjoy and listen. And I'm going to post a link in the chat so that if anybody wants to join us in this exploration, that would be fun too. So we'll do that. Okay, so yeah, and maybe just start over with what we were talking about when you first jumped on with me privately.
Sure.
And yeah.
Yeah, the one of the first things that hit me about so she has Lilith as a transformation at the end, close to the end, and I really love how George MacDonald loves the character Lilith enough to save her, to restore her, and not throw her out or kind of maybe an easy solution where you just kind of contain the evil or you just annihilate the evil. And he's kind of, before this process, he gives a really interesting quote about annihilation that I like to read, which explains this.
Yes. Yeah, let's hear it.
So he says, annihilation itself is no death to evil, only good where evil was is evil dead. An evil thing must live with its evil until it chooses to be good. That alone is the slaying of evil. So he takes off the table two popular views about hell, I think, the conscious torment, containment hell, and then the annihilation view. And I think he does it because it's maybe too easy.
Yeah.
And he wants to go the hard route. We got to go through the process.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe he takes on Lilith because it would have been too controversial if it was Lucifer. I don't know. So he kind of goes with the Queen of Hell, maybe just to not scare too many people away. So that's kind of my first initial thoughts about the.
Yeah, and you talked about loving the unlovable, and she's like, on the extreme end of unlovable, right? Because she is kind of like a feminine version of Satan himself, in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really go further than Lilith on the spectrum from Mary, let's say.
That's right.
Eve, yeah.
So,
that's kind of the initial thoughts. What struck me was the process itself. The transformation has like these different layers to it. When Mara, you mentioned about Mara being about the house.
House of Bitter Waters.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you said, which I thought was really astute, was that the bitter waters were the tears. And I never thought of that myself, actually. So,
yeah. And there's a beautiful couple paragraphs I want to read that really captures this part, kind of at the end of the transformation. Really beautiful. So that's a perfect note for that. But the process itself is something that I've gone through, and maybe everybody has to go through at some point. And it's just Mara and maybe the narrator, they're talking with Lilith. And so the first thing that she has is this self-will or autonomy that she says, I will be and do as myself pleases, that what I choose makes me me. No one ever made me. You cannot force me against your will. This is like the initial kind of back and forth.
She just to clarify, she's talking about Mara, or she's talking to Mara?
She's talking to Mara, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're kind of going back and forth, and I'm taking Lilith's perspective right now. So I'm not really, because Mara this whole time is giving her truth, but she's just not ready to hear it.
Right.
So it's going to take something deeper than just a discussion, I guess, or an argument.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the first phase of that. So that can get into free will. Maybe we leave that for the end of after the transformation. That's a whole free will debate thing or topic. that she goes through this hatred part where she hates the light. So at this point, so there's another quote: "The light shall not enter me." Right. So she's fighting. Well, let me see what Mara says. Mara says in response is very interesting. She says about her that she's seeing herself, the hell of her self-consciousness. And then she says the central fire of the universe, revealing what she is. So her own consequences, her own actions, and is burning herself.
Right.
That's what's burning her. And deeper within that is what he calls the central fire. So she knows that she is herself the fire in which she is burning, but not that the light of fire is the heart of that fire. I'm just kind of taking quotes straight out of the book. So there's something deeper than her will that she doesn't even realize.
Right.
There's something, because I think you mentioned there's something behind your free will. I'll say free, kind of lit.
Right.
We can talk about that, but there's something even deeper than that, and that's the fire beneath what lights up the will. And she says she is not forsaken. Also, you would think she was forsaken in this kind of place, but she's not forsaken. So this is kind of what Mara is saying to her, which I thought was important.
Yes,
as part of this process. So you have the consequences. You have the self-infliction that she goes through. This is me. This is my. I am in control. But
right.
Your control is now it is what's destroying you from the inside.
Yep.
Right. It's her own fire. She herself is her fire, her own fire that's burning.
Right.
So I'll throw out another phase of this. It's the blame. Right. This is kind of an Adam and Eve thing. She blames, why did he make me such? He alone is to blame. So she throws out one of these at one point, right? She's grasping for anything way to get out of it. She's like, okay, I've tried the will thing. Now the consequences. I'm really feeling the guilt of it. Now she's kind of blaming it, like I didn't make myself this way.
Yep.
Then she gets to kind of suicidal place. She says, "How often have I agonized to cease? The tyrant, capital T, keeps me alive."
Yeah.
Right. So she's basically falling apart at this stage. I mean, we could talk probably an hour on each of these little these phases. Because at this point, you think, does God leave her there? Does God give her free will? Her request is to die, right? This is the request of annihilation. Just let me die.
Yeah.
Will God give you your request? Will He let the false aspect of you, which wants to die, kill also the good part, kill everything, right?
Yeah.
Will He let that happen? So, this is in the final stage of this. I don't even have. There's not really even words anymore. She's not really even talking, because the shadow part, which is kind of what's kind of behind this. It's not her will necessarily. It's the shadow, capital S.
Yeah.
The narrator says that there's a nothingness, a negation that enfolds her, and this is kind of like the low point. I thought immediately outer darkness. This is the outer darkness.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. The fire is gone. Now there's really nothing left. It's
all of her attempts to justify who she is have failed, right?
Yeah. So her consciousness is now empty.
Yeah.
Right. And this is like the beautiful thing right here. So this is where a lot of the stories end. And this is what my struggle growing up was. Where's God in this place, in this like outer darkness? And what I love is that this is not the end. Because there's something subconsciously now. There's something happening underneath that we're not aware of in the outer darkness. And she says, open thy hand and let that which is in. Mara says to her, open your hand. You're holding onto something. You have to let go. Let that which is in it go.
Just for anybody watching, I just want to say that Lilith has a clasped hand all through the story. So her hand is never open. One of her hands is never open. And yeah, okay, I'll just say that much.
I think, and this is where I want to get into the meat of it. What does the right hand symbolize? So she's clasping her hand, and now it's about getting her hand open. This is like the final struggle.
Yes.
And so she says, Lilith says, I cannot open my hand. I have no longer the power. Open it for me. Do it for me.
If you read parts of this, I'm just going to cry, just so you know.
Yeah.
It's really hard for me. It's so incredibly beautiful. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I feel like I do want to pause, but I want to finish the story, and then we can kind of let it flow, let it sink in. Mara tells her, you must open it yourself. I cannot do it for you. So I'm just taking quotes straight out. She says, finally, I yield. I am a slave. Let me die. So something beautiful happens here. Go ahead.
So in that last statement there, she kind of thinks that she's going to be killed. Like she thinks she's going to receive punishment for, she's finally yielded. Like when she says, I yield, right? Like now just kill me, right? Like just do, because this is what she would have done, right? To others. Like she would have had that, inclination, right?
Yeah.
Once they yield, then off with their head kind of thing. And yeah, let's see here, William.
She's still grasping. She's still holding her red hand closed, right? And even in these statements.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go beyond words, and this is, I love this, the way that MacDonald goes. This is a sentence here.
See?
This is the crying part.
Here's the crying part.
Here we go. So Mara goes to Lilith, like her mother, in whom lay the motherhood of all the world. Mara put her arms around her and kissed her on the forehead.
Oh, try it one more time. I didn't quite hear it.
Kissed her on the forehead.
Oh yes, yeah. Oh man.
So it's a place where the words don't go.
No. What was the first part? Like the mother, what?
Like her mother, in whom lay the motherhood of all the world. So MacDonald brings everybody into this story.
Everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I have a beautiful paragraph. I don't know if I can get through.
Well, wait, before you try it, tell me, see if I can find it on my Kindle, just in case you can't make it, and then I can try. See if we can do it.
Yeah.
Just let my Kindle open up here. All right, my Kindle is, oh, there it is. Okay. Whew. All right.
And saying it out loud, when this was in my head and I was writing notes, I was not crying.
I know.
Only crazy, saying it out loud does it change.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy. Okay, so I'm going to find, do you know what chapter it's in? All I have is
page
Roman.
104.
Well, I've got a Kindle version, and I've only got Roman numerals. So if you give me the Roman numerals, I can find it.
I think it's chapter 40.
40? Which would be XXX, right?
Yeah, XXX, and then maybe IV for, but that's it's 39. So maybe 4 X's. I don't know.
XXX, XXXV. Let's see here. The little ones in Belika? No, that's not it.
I think I can go. I can say it.
Okay. Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah. There's no, actually, that's good. That gave me some time
to recover.
So Lilith. So a little bit later, Lilith lay and wept. Okay. So these are the. I'm so glad you brought up the bitter tear or the bitter water. This is the bitter water, I think, and this is happening in Mara's house, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Lady of Sorrow went to the door and opened it. Morn, with the spring in her arms, waited outside. Softly, they stole in at the open door, with a gentle wind in the skirts of their garments. It flowed and flowed about Lilith, rippling and unknown, upwaking seat of her life eternal, rippling and to ripple it until at length she who had been as a weed cast on the dry sandy shore to wither, should know herself an inlet of the everlasting ocean, henceforth to flow into her forever and ebb no more. She answered the morning wind with reviving breath and began to listen. For in the skirts of the wind had come the rain, the soft rain that heals the moan, the many wounded grass, soothing it with the sweetness of all music, the hush that lives between music and silence. It bedewed the desert places around the cottage, and the sands of Lilith's heart heard it and drank it in. When Mara returned to sit by her bed, her tears were flowing softer than the rain, and soon she was fast asleep.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Oh, I have to read it again now. You're inspiring me to read it again. It's interesting because she has a sense of oneness with everything, right?
Yeah, the wind.
And the ocean. And and this is one of the things that I always thought was interesting about the character, is that she was literally super solitary, like throughout the whole thing. She didn't really have anyone, right? She was just really cut off, like personally, she cut off. Yeah. And now she felt like she belonged to everything, right?
She's as a weed cast on the dry sandy shore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which brings up the parable of the sower for me, like the seed that's cast on the dry ground and never really, comes up and then withers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's not the time for that seed.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, this one of the things I can say about George MacDonald is that the man knows his Bible. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not just that, it's so subtle and hidden.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That it's not over the head. It's not like beating you on the head with it. And this is where the beauty is.
Yeah.
And she feels that's conscious outer darkness. She feels alone. She's disconnected herself. That's the false part. That's the false self, and that's not true. That's not reality. And at some point, the seed realizes that it's time to open up.
Yeah.
At some point.
Well, her tears fell like soft rain, right? Which would be life-giving to these things again. So, yeah.
What she's holding in her hand is life water.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me. I don't want to
You're jumping.
So
you're jumping.
I am jumping because I'm a little too excited. Because I don't want to forget that little detail.
That's a big detail.
Okay, so after this, I think words are done. So the narrator is using imagery to show the water kind of filling up her soul.
Yeah.
And
watering all the dry desert places in her heart. Like, yeah. Living water, right? Yeah.
This is Revelations 22. Come and drink the water.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the last things in the Bible, actually.
Mm-hmm.
The bride and I say, come. Yeah. This is a very interesting part. So she still has her hand closed.
Yeah.
And they have to cut it off. There's just there's no more debating.
You have to at least. Sorry to interrupt you, but for the viewers, you have to say who cuts it off. Do you remember?
I know that Adam is there now.
Mm-hmm.
Adam and Eve, Mara, I think they're all there.
Yeah.
I didn't write down who cut it off.
Well, Adam did. Adam. And Adam, at this point, like, we're really like spoiling the novel here, but I don't think so, because at the same time, there's so much going on in this story, and it's so beautifully woven together that one must read it. I hope this inspires people to read it, actually. But this is the new Adam.
Mm.
At least that's how I've always thought of it. Because we've got this contrast always going on in the story between Lilith and Eve and Adam and Christ, right? So, and I can say that one of the things that I realized, I don't hope this doesn't throw you for a loop or anything, but one of the things I realized about Lilith was that because of different descriptions of her, actually, the description of Lilith, that kind of it's not like in one paragraph where she's described. It's kind of flows through the story, but she is described precisely the way the whore of Babylon is described in Revelation. And so, and this is where I got the insight that the whore of Babylon isn't destroyed, but rather it is transformed into the bride of Christ. It's like George MacDonald says, annihilation isn't good enough, right? This is this. Yeah. And he's always George MacDonald's always talking about transformation. So we'll just,
For me, he goes the extra steps.
Oh,
that were helpful for me. That really captures it for sure. One of the things I love about him. Mm-hmm. But he does something so interesting here so Adam cuts off her hand, and he says they want to dress it up, right? He says a wound from that sword needs no dressing; it is healing and not hurt.
Yeah.
So to me, it's okay. So what is the right hand to me? I think it's her addictions, to the point where she cannot do it anymore herself. She just cannot will her to open her own hand.
Yeah.
God needs to surgically cut it off. So I'm thinking of Jesus' statements about Gehenna. It's better to go in Gehenna without your right hand.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's the right hand is where only God can step in and do the work, because she does yield, but she's not able to open up her own hand of her own will. She says, "Can you open it for me?" She asks.
Yeah.
So they have to cut it off.
Yeah. And let's also just say that she has finally gotten to the point where she desires to sleep. Remember? Like they're in that part of the like it's like these tombs, and it's cold in there, and everybody voluntarily lies down to sleep, and she's finally gotten to the point where she's ready to sleep. She's completely exhausted, right? And she wants to sleep, but she can't until she lets this thing opens her hand, and and so as soon as Adam cuts off her hand, she sleeps
immediately. Yeah, I remember that line. Immediately.
Yeah.
And
she asks him to. She asks him to. Like none of this is coercion, just to say. Like he doesn't cut off her hand. Well, like she asks, she's like, just cut it off, because I can't. She's so exhausted from the fight with Mara in the House of Bitter Waters that she hasn't even got the strength anymore to open her hand.
MacDonald has preserved the will of the person and also God's providence. Yeah. He's put them together. He's
mercy
in
and
this story. He's
mercy and justice.
So I want to tie this to it. So you mentioned in the Anastasis, the icon, Jesus is pulling out Adam and Eve from their graves, and he's pulling them from their wrist.
Yes.
And you know that image it gave me? No hands.
Oh yeah.
No hand. You don't need. There's no handshake, or there's no together. It's just the limp hand.
Yeah.
Or let's say no hand, and he's just pulling him up by the wrist. You made that important little. You noticed that little.
Well, yeah, because for me, that like, there's another one. There's another icon like that. I can't remember the name of it, but anyway, what's it? I think what's being said there is you don't have a choice about this. You can't let go. Right? When someone has you by the wrist, you can't let go. Which is phenomenal.
Yeah. That little detail says a lot about
what the church believes or is willing to believe.
There's no verse on that, as far as I know. It's just so he makes points about the synergy, I guess I would say, about God and man in this imagery, about the right hand. And I think he finds the balance in the line where we go too far into free will defenses of hell, let me say.
Yep.
The C.S. Lewis, we put ourselves in there, and then we ignore that what animates the person, what the person doesn't, the person's desires come from a larger desire that's deeper, that even your will doesn't even necessarily realize.
That they can't, that they can't know.
Mm-hmm. There's a fire beneath the will that's working, that's drawing you in. Like God puts you to the desires in your heart for him. And no one sees that as co-opting your free will or destroying your free will. He made you for a purpose.
Right.
And free will, my problem with the free part is that, was Lilith free in her state? Because you could say from a free will mentality, yeah, right? She's saying, oh, I have my own choice. I hate the light and I do this, and this is my free will. But does she look free to you? Is my question.
Yeah. She
seems pretty in bondage to me. She seems enslaved. I mean, yes, I don't see any freedom there. The freedom is when the obstacle is removed to you being who you were meant to be, who you were born to be.
Yeah.
That's the true freedom. So this is kind of, this is where my thoughts went.
Let me just read this part, because we're talking about Adam cutting off Lilith's hand, and then you referred to the icons of the resurrection, where Christ is pulling up Adam and Eve from the grave by the wrists, right? And and so here it says, and actually I have one of those icons and I'll show it to you, everybody. Okay, so whoops, am I good? There you can see very clearly that he has them by the wrists. Right? And I always thought that the icon and what George MacDonald is talking about has something to do with this. But now Christ is risen from the dead and has become the first fruits of those who have fallen asleep. Okay? Fallen asleep. For since by man came death, by man, with a capital M, also came the resurrection of the dead. For as in Adam all die, even so in Christ all shall be made alive. But each one in his own order, which is also present in that story, right? They don't all wake up from their sleep at the same time. Christ the first fruits, afterward those who are Christ's at his coming. Then comes the end, when he delivers the kingdom to God the Father, when he puts an end to all rule and all authority and power, for he must reign till he has put all enemies under his feet. The last enemy that will be destroyed is death, for he has put all things under his feet. But when he says all things are put under him, it is evident that he, capital H, who put all things under, capital H, him, is accepted. Now, when all things are made subject to him, then the Son himself will also be subject to him, capital H, who put all things under him, capital H, that God may be all in all. And that is 1 Corinthians 15, 20 to 28. So I think that's like almost the basis of this whole story, but anyway.
Oh, yeah. For those who want a Bible verse.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. That's for you.
Yeah. I'm just gonna address Anselman here. Anselman, you need to forget about the mythological character of Lilith. You need to forget about any claims to the trueness of the myth. This is not what George MacDonald is talking about, but he's using the name Lilith to exemplify how God is going to become all in all, which is what I just read. Okay, so this is my recommendation for you, Anselman. Try to forget everything you've ever heard about the mythological Jewish story, Lilith. Okay? Yes, that's right. This Lilith is poetry. So that's just my suggestion. I mean, you may not want to take that suggestion, but I would recommend it, because otherwise I see you doing this all the time. Whenever I mention Lilith, Anselman, you do this. This is not the same story, and it's not trying to say the same thing. Okay.
I'm saying become Lilith. That's what I'm saying. Put yourself in Lilith, because in every phase of those, you can relate. I can relate.
Oh yeah.
I've done all those things.
That's why we're crying.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You gotta put yourself in there, because you're gonna miss it. You're gonna really miss the tears.
Yeah.
And the impact of it. And yeah, Lilith is just in a very extreme example. She's the queen of hell.
But aren't we all? But aren't we all? I mean, like if we want to make this, let's say, easier for Anselman to hear, aren't we all? Like, aren't we all sinners saved by grace? Whoops. John is gone. Oh, there you are. You're back.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Got a call. Yeah. So with the, maybe I want to talk about the right hand.
Yes, let's go.
Thing, or the hand being cut off. Well, I guess I'm making it the right hand, and what that represents. It's what can I say? That it's a place that only God can go. That goes underneath your will, goes even deeper. What you think you are. So what I want to say, in the outer darkness, consciously it's dark, but subconsciously the spark is still there. God is still there underneath. And you don't think you see him, but he's gonna drag you, like I think the verse says, drag you towards him with the desire he put in you. And you're just gonna run out of things, run out of obstacles eventually. That's kind of what I get from MacDonald. And it's not just Lilith, it's his sermons too. Right, the last farthing and these things. You're just going to come to the end of all these things.
Yeah.
And the right hand is when you're so locked in, you're so addicted that you just cannot get out anymore.
I've always seen it as the having mode, right? It's like, and John Vervaeke, has been great about showing that there, there's two modes in, there's the having mode in the world, and then there's the being mode, right? Which is like an open hand. And so, like, when Lilith can't open her hand, she's been in that mode so long that her hand is practically grown together,
her body, so her mind has yielded, but her body, the thousands of years of buildup that on her body, because Luke talks about the body keeps the score.
Yeah.
And the damage on the body has just been frozen shut.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, if you think about it in terms of addiction, like you said, I'm sure people who had, who struggled to break addictions know how, no matter how hard, you want to, and this is what Paul the Apostle talks about. He talks about, I do that which I want to do or don't want to do, and that which I want to do, I don't do, right? So we always have this like mind-body disconnect happening, right? So, yeah.
And a surgery is needed at some point to just cut it off so that it can grow again. So it's the hand, where the dead deformity clung, the true lovely hand is already growing. That's another sentence out of
the true what?
The true lovely hand is already growing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where that dead deformity clung. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so beautiful. So I just want to read you quickly a description of the Whore of Babylon, because there's a line in here that is what clued me in. Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and talked with me, saying to me, "Come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters." And that's what Lilith did. She said she had the waters, right? Remember, throughout the story, he could hear them under the ground. But she sat on the many waters, right? And with whom the kings of the earth committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, which was full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet, which are colors that she wears in the story, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the filthiness of her fornication. So there's a little clue, a little bit more of a clue.
And so, MacDonald, even for MacDonald, there's no remainder in God, and all in all, even the right hand, which is cut off, is buried.
Yeah.
And from there, springs come out. The hand is opened, and the life water gushes.
Yeah, and the waters that she sat on in the story, right? Because nobody had access to the waters, and of course,
she was
water
withholding it.
Yeah, and water brings life, right, to the land. And I'll let you tell what happens in the story, so I'm not going ahead and telling it, but just maybe to give people who are watching an idea what we're talking about. What happens? He cuts her hand off, and then?
They go and bury it. And from there, the life water comes out. And I know that all her citizens, right, in Bolika, they're able to flourish.
Yep.
So she keeps an entire her kingdom parched, deserted, a desert.
Yeah. Yep.
And so the garden can flow again. The New Jerusalem.
Anselman's getting into it. Awesome, Anselman. Contrast of unfaithful ancient Jerusalem and the woman clothed in the sun, the church. Yeah, it is. I mean, God uses the language of whoring in the Old Testament to refer to his own people, right? They're constantly whoring. Yeah. And I mean, the book of Hosea is amazing on this. Because God tells his prophet to go marry a whore. And all she ever does is whore on him. And he has to take her back. And he has to take her back. Something to consider, folks.
And the New Jerusalem, with your talk with Jonathan Demir, is the bride. Because I checked the verse. The angel says, "Behold the bride," and then he points to the New Jerusalem.
Okay.
The wife of the Lamb, I think is what he says.
Right.
And yeah, in the old, what I remember from the prophets is that God is always calling back the whore Israel, calling back to be his bride again.
Yeah.
So that she can be adorned in jewels. And so the New Jerusalem is this calling back the bride.
Right.
And adorned in jewels, and then together they say, "Come, drink of the living water."
I'm just looking home. I got goosebumps here. I'm just reading Revelation 22.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know that that's how the book ended until you said it. And he showed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding from the throne of God and the Lamb. In the middle of its street, and on either side of the river, was the tree of life, which bore 12 fruits, each tree yielding its fruit every month. The leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. And there shall be no more curse, but the throne of God and of the Lamb shall be in it, and his servants shall serve him. They shall see his face, and his name shall be on their foreheads. There shall be no night there. They need no lamp nor light of the sun, for the Lord gives them light, and they shall reign forever and ever. And didn't you read something about a lamp at the beginning there? And then at the very end, like you said, and the Spirit and the bride say, come, and let him who hears say, come, and let him who thirsts come. Whoever desires, let him take the water of life freely. And that's how this novel ends, with the water of life flowing so that everyone can take freely. Because before, she sat on the waters, Lilith, right? And nobody could access them. And she was always bathing, remember? It's been a while since I read the story. She was always bathing, like she had water, all fountains, and in the center of her castle, and like she
for herself.
She was hoarding the water. Yeah,
hoarding the never-ending water, as if you can, hoarding it like there's no other water in the universe,
right?
As if it just doesn't always flow continually forever. You can't hoard that for yourself, because it's not it's not, if you have the water, I don't have the water. No, the water is enough. There's enough water for everybody. The sum zero game I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Fighting over resources.
And I mean, really sum zero for Lilith, because she didn't even want to have children. And she was, yeah.
She even kills her daughter in the process.
Which is really a zero-sum game.
And it's just like the loaves and the fish that Jesus breaks. Like, it's limitless, guys. You don't have to. It's limitless.
It's abundant.
There's enough. There's more than enough for everybody.
Yeah.
Live like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen.
Don't hoard it. Don't hoard the treasures. And now I'm just exploding in all kinds of directions. I'm thinking of the parable of the Lazarus in Hades, with the rich man and Lazarus.
What are you thinking about that? Like, expand on that.
So the rich man is hoarding the treasures. He's not giving anything to Lazarus. And then the tables flip in the parable.
Right.
And the story, and then Lazarus then he's begging for water. Give me just a drop of water on my parched tongue.
Right.
So now my brain is just hyperlinking to all the different the Bible stories.
Yeah, I know.
All different images.
Yeah, well, this is why I keep saying we have to realize, like, the story that we're in, right? Because it is the same story, just being told over and over with different, like I said to Jonathan, dream language, right? Symbolic language. Which is what George MacDonald's doing. He's telling the same story with symbolic language, Yeah.
And for those who can connect or vibrate with him on his frequency, you'll get it. And there are other ways to, and if you need the Bible verses and if you resonate on that frequency, there are verses for that. And the water will find its place to where it needs to be for the person. He'll meet you where you need it most, maybe. And he'll go deeper, and he'll pull you deeper.
And this is where the Psalm, I'm not even sure which Psalm it is, maybe where when David says, there's nowhere I can go where you are not, right? Does anybody know?
Yeah, I can't escape. Even in Sheol, I can't escape. I don't know the verse number, but yeah, I know.
Does anybody know? Anselman, what Psalm is that? Where shall I go to escape you?
Even Jonah tries to escape in Sheol, in the belly. And another story, another, and I don't want to get sidetracked with whether it was a whale or what kind of fish it was.
Right. No. 139.
That's
I'm
not the point.
No. Okay, I'm
Jonah came to
checking.
the end of himself.
Oh, thank you, Mariel. Okay, here we go. Yeah, 139. Oh Lord, you have searched. I'm just going to read it. It's nice and long. Okay. This'll do us all good. Oh Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know my sitting down and my rising up. You understand my thought afar off. You comprehend my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. For there is not a word on my tongue. But behold, O Lord, you know it altogether. You have hedged me behind and before, and laid your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high, I cannot attain it. Where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend into heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall fall on me, even the night shall be light about me. Indeed, the darkness shall not hide from you, but the night shines as day. The darkness and the light are both alike to you. For you formed my inward parts. You covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. My frame was not hidden from you, when I was made in secret and skillfully wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. Your eyes saw my substance, being yet unformed, and in your book there all were written, the days fashioned for me, when as yet there were none of them. How precious also are your thoughts to me, O God! How great is the sum of them! If I should count them, they would be more in number than the sand. When I awake, I am still with you. Oh, that you would slay the wicked, O God! Depart from me, therefore, you bloodthirsty men, for they speak against you wickedly. Your enemies take your name in vain. Do I not hate them, O Lord, who hate you? And do I not loathe those who rise up against you? I hate them with perfect hatred. I count them my enemies. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my anxieties, and see if there is any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Yeah. I hate them with complete hatred. It says here, there's this footnote. But, like that part of it, we have to go back to what you were saying at the beginning about what George says about annihilation and containment.
Yeah, because that hatred, we can even say the wrath of God. We can say punishment. We can put all kinds of words on it. It needs to do it. It needs to do its work on you.
Yeah.
Annihilation doesn't solve the problem, unfortunately, because it doesn't deal with the evil like it should. It doesn't transform it.
Right. And the other thing that the other thought I've always had about annihilation is that how do you annihilate someone? Because they ripple out into the world, right? If you take them out of it,
everything else falls.
Everything else falls like dominoes. Yeah.
Because his mother loved him.
Yeah.
And she has now lost a piece of her.
I mean, the best example
ripples.
Right. And the best example of this is the movie It's a Wonderful Life, right? They treat that, like he's never born, right? So he's just wiped out, and things just go much differently for his, right, when he's taken out of the picture. So anyway, I think that's where I even got that idea. It's from that movie. I'm like, how do you annihilate someone? Like, you can't just annihilate them,
You have the problem of memories and the problem of relationships.
And if
that you have to deal with.
Right. And if being is relational, then it's we're we're very intertwined, folks. All of us.
I think it's that at the very core of your being.
Right.
Like, if you take away all humanities, you have the relationship to the divine. You have that. And I think that's where you end up in the outer darkness. You have you're disconnected from the world, from nature, and from humanity, and it's just you and God. God keeps you alive in that state. He is there if he is keeping you alive. And you can't lose that relationship to the divine. It's just not lost.
Right. And here's a question for those that are watching. The sword that he cuts off the hand with, he says, what's that line that he says, John? He says, this sword does not, you read it.
About the wound from the sword?
Yeah.
Needs no dressing. It is healing and not hurt.
Right. From that sword. Okay, so here's my question, folks. What is the sword? I don't know. I don't know. I have thoughts, but I don't know. I'd be curious to hear from everybody.
I can wait.
Yeah.
I have an idea.
Yeah, just wait for a minute and let's see if we get any responses. It's the sword that heals and doesn't hurt, right?
Or not merely hurt. It's painful, but it's healing. It's purposeful.
Right. The word of God. Yeah. I was thinking of that picture of Christ in Revelation where he has that sword.
Yes.
No.
Yes. That's what I was.
You were thinking of that too.
Yes. And the sword, what is the sword doing in that?
Yeah. Quick and powerful, sharper than a two-edged sword. Yeah. The love of God that purifies us. Yeah. Yeah. These are all good.
It divides. So the sword divides.
And it divides.
He just said I came to divide.
Right.
I had that image too of the Revelation Jesus. And even further, I mean, can I say what? Should I?
Yes, go.
I'm just a little bit too excited. The sword is coming out of his mouth in that imagery.
Yeah.
It's not from the hand. It's not. So I think Anselm nails it.
Right.
But the word itself is also symbolic of many things. I mean, that opens the door to many other things.
Well, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Right. Coming out of his mouth is a sharp sword with which, okay, that's NIV. Let's find a different here. And from his mouth proceeds a sharp sword with which to strike down the nations, and he will rule them with an iron scepter. He treads the winepress of the fury of the wrath of God the Almighty. And he has a name written on his robe and on his thigh, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Yeah. From his mouth proceeds a sharp sword.
This is when Paul talks about going through a fire, so that only the gems remain.
Right.
That's another way. Yeah, purification. Yeah.
I always saw that scene in Lilith as I could never think of a better illustration of justice and mercy happening at once. Right. Where she asks him to cut off her hand, and he cuts it off with a sword that heals. Right? Because that's what mercy means. It means to heal, to knit together.
And if the pain, the suffering, the surgery, it doesn't heal, what is its purpose?
Right.
Then you get into the purpose is to fulfill some kind of sin law or some breakage of.
Right. Payback. Now you're in debtor's prison, and you know someone's keeping an account book And that's kind of the story of Uncle Cornelius is, did you hear the story of Uncle Cornelius that I read? Where
I didn't.
Oh, okay. It's a long story. It's okay. I'll just leave it. Suffering that leads to repentance. Cutting off the unfruitful branches, suffering that leads to repentance and healing. Yes, exactly. If thy right hand offend thee, cut it off. This is what he's playing with, Anselman, is that whole idea in that scene.
And what is the right hand too? Symbolically, it's your actions, right? You what you move with.
Yeah.
Because you have the
well, there's a lot of things about right and
hand
left.
of God. There's a lot.
I'm not entirely sure how much of it applies to that statement, but yeah, it's also the hand that most people use to hold things, right? The grasping hand.
Yeah.
It's also the hand that's operated from the left side of your brain.
Aha. Okay, so I've been on a McGilchrist for a while, and that's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Because the left brain's job, which it does very well, is to close down.
Yeah, to
focus
grasp
in and just
grab. Yeah. For all the right reasons, like McGilchrist points out, right?
Right.
You got the right brain keeping an eye on the environment, and the left brain focusing in on food, right? So like he uses the bird picking nesting materials or something, it needs to have both of those things operating at the same time, right?
And it can't overtake the right brain. It can't
take
on the kingdom for itself.
Right.
You might have to just cut it off.
Literally. Yeah, it's literally the emissary, and the right brain is the master, right? The thing that sees the whole is the master. It says, go, right? It says, okay, get that food, right? It's all clear, get the food. And then the left brain hones in on that sustenance and picks it. You try not to be offended, William, about what left and right brain stuff.
So the left brain is focused on the bread. The right brain, when it's open, is focused on the bread of life, or understands the bread of life. And that's the opening up of the right hand. When you understand that God is sustaining you.
Well,
not simply your acquisition of the
I've been dying to use this illustration. I've been dying to use this illustration of the monkey trap. You know what how they trap them?
Yeah.
Right? And I think that, like, modernity is stuck in a monkey trap. Right? It sticks its hand in there, and it has the nut, and it believes that because it has the nut, it won. But it's literally going to starve to death because it can't get its hand out. It's stuck in the trap, right? Like, this monkey trap is exactly what's happening to us today. Like, people actually thought during the lockdowns that they could survive just ordering food from Uber Eats and getting their stuff from Amazon and watching Netflix. That is the having mode. That is being stuck in the monkey trap, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we got what we wanted. We wanted our social media and our screens, and so we got it.
I only think in metaphors, William. It's, I used to actually be afraid to say all those things because I thought that they weren't smart enough. Now I'm like, oh hell. Just say it anyway.
No, the metaphor, they open doors.
Yeah.
To more things. they don't close the door. I love symbols for that too. Metaphors, yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because now you can think about your story. How do you integrate your story into this thing? And everyone has their own language for it, their own symbol and image, and we're just throwing out different ways of the same thing. And this is a repeating pattern I see in the Bible now that you think about when you think about it. This is the Job thing.
Yeah. What are you thinking about when you say this is the Job thing?
Well, the Job goes through the wrath of God, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. Satan let loose. So he feels the end of his blessed life, right? He loses everything. And then it's interesting because he's defending himself rightfully at the end. He's rightfully defending himself against his
friends,
his accuser friends.
Well, they are friends because in the end he saves their asses. Because the wrath of God was kindled against them.
Yeah.
And he had to pray for them, and he did.
Well, God shows him, do you know who I am? Do you know who sustains you? Who sustains the world? Who sustains Leviathan and Behemoth and all these creatures, great and small? Mm-hmm. Who sustains them? Who
feeds the young lions? Who feeds the young lions? One of mine and Jess's favorite lines in there. Yeah, who feeds the young lions? Because his friends actually, Jess was so studied. He pointed out that the friends actually use the analogy that God breaks the mouth of the lion. And then in the speech, he says to Job, who feeds the young lions? I'm not just breaking mouths here, folks. I'm doing other stuff. Yeah. Job will give you pause.
And I think that's the point of the story. It's to put you in silence.
Yeah.
And I believe that's how it ends. It's
awe. Because in Job 28, and we're doing a little sidetrack. We'll get back. But in Job 28, it says at the very end, fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. No, how does it go? I'm so bad. I know these things, but I don't know them well enough to.
Thank God for Google, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I have nuggets too.
Bible Hub. Job 28. Yeah, is the fear of the Lord is wisdom, and I hate these other. Departing from evil is understanding. But it's the fear as in the awe, right? When you experience that awe. And then, of course, if you depart from evil, then you've understood it, right? If that's what you're not doing anymore, then, oh, look, she got it. He got it.
And the evil is knowing where you come from. That's. Do you control yourself?
Well, see, this is the thing. Like, if you stand in awe of God, that's the beginning of wisdom. And it's not departing from evil that gives you understanding. It's understanding that makes you depart from evil. A lot of people think that they're going to get understanding if they depart from evil, which they might, but I don't think that's the way this works. It's a procession, right? Things proceed out of them like water, like the water that proceeds out of Lilith's hand. right? And yeah. What did Jesus call the Pharisees? Whitewashed sepulchres, right? That's when you think that you'll get understanding by departing from evil. But in my opinion, and I'll just keep it at that, it's when you get understanding, then you depart from evil, right? So, and I think it's Solomon says that quite often. And in everything that you desire to get understanding. You know, he's really quite big on that statement. Get it quick, right?
The way I see understanding is you're relinquishing your control and realizing what really sustains you,
right?
And trusting that.
And this is, well, I mean, if we go back to the story of Lilith, this is exactly what happened to her, right? She got understanding, and it was in that moment that she was able to depart from evil,
and then rest. Also,
but she had to try.
Or no.
She had to. Oh, sorry.
No.
She had to try all her. She had to try all her avenues, and I think she's actually described as or she turns into a cat several times in Mara's house.
Yeah. Yes. And
she's like climbing walls, just like, you know, how a cat can go haywire and hide and, you know, look for a way out. And that's what she's doing, right? She's, you know, when she's doesn't want to have to face this moment of letting go, which she actually doesn't do. God's mercy and justice is that he cuts it off at her request. It's pretty powerful.
What she can't do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She gave up the control.
Yeah. Yep.
And then the doors opened and there's life. I mean, then you see this pattern everywhere. You just see the repeating.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, I think that's right, Marielle. And, you know, we can LARP, or is that what they call it? Or act as if. But at some point, you're either going to, like, you're going to have to do what Lilith did. You're going to have to, you know, lay down and sacrifice that thing. That thing you're holding on to, you know, because of your understanding. Smart person without wisdom perceives danger everywhere. William had a mad cat named Loopy. Mm-hmm. There's what movie is that? Oh yeah, my favorite, Mouse Hunt. Does anybody ever seen Mouse Hunt? And there's a crazy cat in that movie that they go to the SPCA and they get the worst cat in the SPCA, and it's in a box and its legs and arms come out of them. It's just crazy. It's such a good movie. Yeah. Well, have you been able to say all the things you wanted to say, John, about this?
Yeah, it never does really end.
No.
But yes, I got through the script, or the prepositions that I wanted to get through.
Right.
But a lot of it is just silence. It really is just trying to grab it.
I like how Luke Thompson talks about the first time he read Lilith. I think he said he was in a coffee shop or something, and he just broke down and wept. And that really is the case. Like, Anselman, I hope you read it. I really do. He's a fellow countryman, Anselman. He's a good
It's
Scot.
like we're fast cats, but God is, he can be a better cat. He can catch you, he can catch up with you, and show you the end of this maze, point you in another direction. Okay, we're gonna go run in this place now. We're gonna go run this place. We're gonna start blaming everybody else. And then there's gonna come to an end of that. He's gonna wall that off. Okay. He's gonna chase you down another maze, and he will cut you off at every impasse. Because he made you.
Yeah. Oh, Marielle's going to read it soon.
He knows what you need. He knows exactly what you need.
Yes, he does.
And he doesn't stop. So I love the hunting down the lost sheep. Every last sheep, every stone unturned. Find that coin. It doesn't matter what it takes.
Yeah, when John and I first started talking before we came on here, I said, Lilith is the lost sheep, right? He leaves the 99 to find her. And I'm just going to look to see. I have so many quotes highlighted in this book, but I want to see if there's one I can find here. Because I think this is a here. So this is at the very beginning of the story, when the main character, whose name is Mr. Vane, is talking to the raven, and he's been transported into some other strange land. He doesn't know where he is. And he says to him, this is Mr. Vane, I humbly beg your pardon. I believe you were once the librarian of our house. But more, who? I do not know. Why do you beg my pardon? Because I took you for a raven, I said, seeing him before me as plainly as a raven as bird or man could look. You did me no wrong, he returned. Calling me a raven, or thinking me one, you allowed me existence, which is the sum of what one can demand of his fellow beings. Therefore, and I put a note there, naming the animals. Therefore, in return, I will give you a lesson. No one can say he is himself until first he knows that he is. Oh, no, sorry, I read that again. No one can say he is himself until first he knows that he is, and then what himself is. In fact, nobody is himself, and himself is nobody. There is more in it than you can see now, but not more than you need to see. You have, I fear, got into this region too soon. But nonetheless, you must get to be at home in it. For home, as you may or may not know, is the only place where you can go out and in. There are places you can go into, and places you can go out of. But the one place, if you do but find it, where you may go both out and in, is home. And recently someone quoted, or I was listening to something or talking to someone, I can't remember anymore. But Jesus talks about the, and Anselman will know this. What is it? The green pastures where the sheep can go in and out, right? Like this is the place where we can go in and out. And, I think it might have been Nate reading a passage from Valentine Tomberg about people. Oh, I know what it was now. It was Nate. but it was a clip that Jonathan made, Jonathan Demir, about the open circle, that it's like that pasture that Jesus describes where the sheep can go in and out. And that's what he's talking about there too. Home is the place where you can go in and out, right? So yeah, I think it's possible all humans might eventually be reconciled to God, but I do think it's possible to be as stubbornly persistent as the devils have been for so long. God will always be merciful. Amen, Anselman. Always.
We are stubborn. Is God more stubborn than we are stubborn? I think God is.
Yeah. Mariel.
Unlimited stubbornness.
Yeah. John and I have been talking about that. John shared this with me. For the whole of human nature is one sheep, and you have lifted it onto your shoulders. This is so good. Oh, John introduced you to it. Yeah, me too. He sent it to me too. Yeah. Well, I think we'll sign off here. Unless you have something else to say, John. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
I don't think so, no.
Can't
use any more words.
I know. Thank you so much for sharing it.
Sure. Thank you so much for your time.
And you've given me some insight into it too. Like, I didn't think about tears as the bitter waters, but hello. Yes, of course. That's really good. John 10:9. Let's read that for Anselman. John 10:9. I happen to have Bible Hub open here. Or do I? No, but I'll open it here. John 10:9. John 10:9. There it is. Thank you. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture. Oh, George. See, this is what I mean about him. He just knows his Bible so well.
Well, what is the out part of the home?
Well, I think it's just the ability. You're free, right? You can go in and out.
So you carry it with you.
You're not in, like, this is what Valentin Tomberg was calling the closed circle of the serpent. You know, you're not caught in the closed circle where you're fenced in and you're captive. Like Jesus talks about setting the captives free, right? And yeah.
But there is still a fence there. There is still a door. The door doesn't disappear.
But he's the door. Jesus says, I am the door. And it's through him that you can go in and out, right? Oh, good night. Good night, Anselman. Heavenly day, 1 a.m. Who'd have thunk I'd spend the night with Lilith? Well, I'm glad you stayed for it. Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome, everybody. And thanks, John, for reaching out to me about this. And yeah, I'm going to sign off. Just stay on for a minute, John, after I end the stream. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.